Hello, welcome back to Rev Endurance Sports and another edition of Cycling 101. We're going to talk about gear ratios today, and I'm going to try not to have you glaze over with boredom because this is a real life situation, and so I was trying to compute if I changed my chain rings and my cassette options for Brest, PBP. It's a 1,200 kilometer event, and apparently it's got about 12,000 meters of climbing, so somewhere in the 40,000 range of feet of climbing. And from most characterizations, by the way, the cold that I have, it's turned into a sinus thing, and now my left ear is clogged. So anyway, so if I change my current combination of 5339 chain rings to a 5236, the 3-tooth step down from a 39 chain ring to a 36 chain ring, how much value will that add to my overall gearing change? Or do I just change a cassette in the back? So that's the exercise I wish to take you through in case you've thought about it yourself. So here we go. One of my favorite websites to geek out on is this one right here. It's bikecalc.com. They are not sponsoring this video. It just is a website that I use often. So what you do is you can choose different things, you know, your fixie, geared, whatever. In this case, I have chosen speed at cadence. And so I've chosen a 29/700. It's the same size, right? So a 32 tire. And then I've said, show me at 50 cadence up to 90 cadence in increments of 10, show me what my speed would be at a particular cadence. And then the input that I've given is two different chain rings, a 39 and a 36, and then the 1128 cassette or an 1132 cassette. Now 1128 would give me a little closer ratio between each of the gears. The 32 is a little bit more spread out, but in fact, for this type of thing, you know, you're loaded, you're not racing in the pure sense of racing. You are always racing the clock because you have to get to each control by a certain time, and the controls close, and then you can't check in, and you know, you have to get to the turnaround. You have to do all this stuff. So 42 hours to do the first 600K, and then you get, I think, 48 hours to do the last 600K. All right, so let's look at this so you can see how I interpret this data. So what you have is, if you were running a 39 crankset, those two values are here, and 39 is the inner chain ring, and 36 would be the inner chain ring. And we're talking Shimano because SRAM has their own thing, and I don't ride SRAM, so maybe at some point I will do one anyway. But if I keep my current crankset setup, which is a 39/28 at a 50 cadence, that's 5.5 miles per hour. You can do the calculation for kilometers. But what if I switched to a 36, kept the cassette the same? Well, I might get a little bit more help in the gearing, right? Because the 39 now drops down three teeth, and so I'm able to go to about 5 miles per hour at 50 cadence, and it's good cadence or good speed at 90 cadence, right? So, you know, something fairly steep, you're in the 70 cadence, something really steep, you're in the 50 cadence maybe, right? But what if I just leave my 39 inner chain ring or the 5339 setup? Because guess what? Cassettes are much cheaper than cranksets. That's the purpose of this video, is like, okay, well, should I get a different crankset or different chain rings Or shall I just buy a cassette, which is really inexpensive, comparatively speaking? So what if I kept my 5339, but just bought an 1132 cassette? Now you can see the difference. 3628, I can actually go much slower up that hill, maintain my balance. Well, not much, but you know, 0.2 miles per hour slower. I'm dipping below 5 miles per hour there. Obviously, if you think you really need the help, you go to that mid-compact crankset with a 36 and you go up to that 32. So there's your 4.5 miles per hour, but I just don't think I'm going to need that much help. So why not just keep my 5339, put an 1132 cassette, and then if it's something really steep and I'm down in this cadence, 50 cadence, somewhat steep or kind of average is 6.8 miles per hour, and then now I'm in my nice fluid pedaling zone of 80 to 90 cadence right in here, 7.8 to 8.8. So this is something you could just play around with a lot. You just keep changing your cogs up here, keep changing your chain rings, and see what makes sense for you on the hills that you ride, the gearing options that are available for your particular drivetrain. So as I mentioned, SRAM has different drivetrain options than the 12-speed Axis is different drivetrain options than the Shimano traditional 5339, 5034. Now, I don't typically ride compact cranksets. I mean, even though we have 20% grades here all over the place, and 8 and 9% is not uncommon either for longer grades, I haven't really had the need to switch to a compact. So that's why what I have here is 39 for a standard crankset, 5339, or a 36 for a mid-compact, which is now a 52 and a 36 inner. So you only lose one tooth on your top end speed. And that's an interesting exercise we could do as well. So like, let's say we're going to go here and we're going to change the chain rings from a 52 and a 53. And then here, we still have that 11 cog. So how is that going to affect our top end speed? So let me blow this up again. So if you had a 53 chainring because you've been used to riding a 5339 for a long time, and you decided, well, I could use 3 less teeth on my inner chainring from a 39 down to a 36, so I could use a little bit of help climbing, but I don't want to lose a lot of top end speed. Okay, so you go from a 5339 to a 5236. You still have your 11 tooth cog as your top end speed. Now you look at the difference here. So 5311, which is what you had, at 90 cadence would put you at 34.8. You're going to lose 0.6 of a mile per hour. Now, I would say you could make that up either, one, by hiding in the wheels with other riders. I could say you could make that up by making yourself more aero, more compact. You could also make that up by just a little bit of higher cadence, go to 95 cadence. So like, let's say we do this at 95 cadence. So remember that was 34.8, 32, 34.2, and we're going to say 55. So it was 0.6 of a difference you needed to make up. So let's see what happens here. On a 5311, let's make that by 5 instead. All right. So 5311, you're 90 cadence, you're at 34.8, sorry. Look at that. If you just bring up your cadence by 5 on that 5211, in other words, oh, you've given up that big ring, you've given up that 53, but if you just bump up your cadence 5 more, you're going to be faster anyway than, if you were a 90 cadence pedaler. You just work your way to getting a higher cadence, and you'll be faster in your 52 than the other guy slogging along on his 53. Anyway, just thought I would share a real life experiment that I'm going through at the moment, just trying to figure out, should I change my crankset or should I just change my cassette? And what I've come up with is it just doesn't make any sense to change my crankset. I'm just going to change my chainring. I'm not going to change my crankset. I am only going to change my cassette in the back from what I was riding, a 3928. Let's clean this up again. Let's go 10, let's go 50, 90. So there's the original graph again. So now, instead of changing my crankset to have a 5236 and a 28, I'm just going to keep my 5339, put an 1132 cassette on, and I'll be golden. Okay, that's all for today. That's a geek out session on gearing and gearing ratios. Hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, please drop a comment down below. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you up the road.